Hello everyone, welcome to another video. I was actually going to put out a new tutorial today. However, I was going through some of my old Hammer, old 40k, old Games Workshop things that I brought from my mum and dad's house to my place, and as I was going through it I found some old Gorkamorka stuff, and with it being the month of October, I couldn't really pass up on an opportunity to make an orc / greenskin video. So basically, when I was going through a bunch of, like I said, my old Hammer stuff, found like some old Caddy and Shook troops and some old Space Marine and stuff, but I used to be really into Gorkamorka, and I found an old out of production Rebel Grot cutter still in the box. So I'd opened the box. I'd started to well, my limited hobby skills at the time, because this is going back probably 25 years. I think this was a 1995 or 1996 release. So this is, I think maybe 96. I think this was released. So this was just I'd got as far as undercoating it, sticking the wheels on, and then everything else was just in pieces. So I just kind of, for the purposes of the video, I thought I would just put it together, just loosely. But yeah, this is the actual white metal Rebel Grot cutter, and it does come with a paper sort of sticker sail. Well, it goes here. That's in the box. I'll show you in a minute. And then it had two crew members. So one little driver guy. He's got his I don't know, little shooter, and he's wearing a little like Rebel Grot bandana, and he just would go there. Try and put him on without breaking it all. And then there's a little Rebel Grot guy that goes into the crow's nest. So which is pretty cool. So I was quite surprised. I had a look on eBay, and this model is going for £200 on eBay. So I'm deliberating whether or not to keep hold of it or sell it, because I mean, it is a nice bit of nostalgia. But I mean, if someone's going to pay £200 for this, then might have my ears pricked there. So I'll just put this to one side for a second. So yeah, for those who don't know what Gorkamorka is, if you are, I think more people will be familiar with Necromunda, as that's a kind of out at the moment, but well, it's had a re-release at the moment, and people are still currently playing that. Gorkamorka was a kind of sort of skirmish game along those lines, and just featuring all orcs. Well, it was all orcs until the supplement Digger Knob came out, and then which is this. Which, oh yeah, by the way, also in the, just to interrupt myself, also in the Gorkamorka haul, I found the rule books for. So this was like a rules book, and this was like a backgrounds book. I think it had a bunch of campaigns and whatnot. And then this was the, sorry, I'm knocking everything everywhere. This was the supplement that got released a year or so after the release of Gorkamorka, and this was basically for the rules for 3 new gangs. So you had the diggers, the guys on the front, who were kind of like humans, who were on the orc world, and they kind of tried to, like, you know, copy the orc sort of ways. So they would be another gang. And then there was also the Rebel Grots, who, that's what this belonged to. And then also Mutie Raiders. So the Muties were basically, from memory, I think they were just like sort of desert people who kind of got irradiated and all kind of weird. So I used to love this game. It was pretty crazy. I used to play with my little brother, and it was the sort of, how do you call it? You know, like narrative. Each battle that you had kind of went on, and any injuries or deaths actually like affected your gang going forward. So you'd roll like at RNG rolls for like how bad the injuries were, and you could end up with all like some of your gang members with like limbs amputated and bionics removed, bionics put on them, and all sorts of weird stuff. So but yeah, the rebel grots were just one of the faction, and as the name suggests, if you know anything about orcs, like the Gretchens or grots they were called, they were kind of like downtrodden sort of like untermensch, sort of second-class citizens who were just sort of oppressed by the orcs and just basically treated like slaves. So the rebel grots, or the rebel grot gangs, were part of, I think it was called the Gretchen Revolutionary Committee, which was just kind of like an uprising basically against the orcs, to kind of get sort of either equal rights or take power themselves. I can't remember, but that's the sort of thing. That's why they there's a few of them have a bit of like sort of Che Guevara and like little the bandanas with the stars on. There's kind of that sort of feel with them. But yeah, just in terms of just looking at the box art and the paint job, I think there's a lot of sort of OLDHAMMER stuff that really like hasn't stood the test of time. I think if I just quickly show you in the Gorkamorka rule book, sort of some of the the orc models and the orc trucks. Bearing in mind that they were still selling these, not too long ago. Well, the actual orc trucks, they look awful, and we've luckily had quite a few updates to the orc range, especially with the new kill team models that just look awesome. And then also in terms of Age of Sigmar, you've got like this guy hasn't got a head on him at the moment, but you've got sort of the new range of Age of Sigmar models. If you sort of compare these to sort of the Gorkamorka or even the old style orcs, these just look so cool, so much better, and such a step in the right direction as you'd expect for them in the newer models these days, newer kits. But I think, to be fair, with the Rebel Grot cutter, apart from having the sort of standard issue 40k wheels, which were basically on everything, they were on Space Marine bikes, they were on the Orc trucks, they were on absolutely everything, and then this front bit was a repurposed chariot wheel, I think. Apart from those, the actual model itself, I think, because of the quirkiness and the uniqueness of the Rebel Grots and of the actual Rebel Grot cutter, it kind of stands up. Like I actually still like like the models, and I think the actual crew members have a lot of character to them. Very badly painted, well, half finished, badly teenage sort of skill level painted Gretchen there, but yeah, I think in terms of the actual model, it has stood the test of time a little bit. And then there for another trip down memory lane, a bit of nostalgia here. On the actual box, you got the old 40k second edition box art, which this was the first full Games Workshop game that I ever got. I'd had Battle Masters before this, which was basically kind of what got me into 40k, Battlemasters was a kind of collaboration between Games Workshop and British company MB Games, which was there was a big battle mat and hexes on it, and you kind of moved around via the sort of the hexes, rather than actually like freely moving across the table with like measuring ranges and stuff. But yeah, that's a sort of iconic piece of, I think it was John Blanche box art there. And then I don't know what edition Warhammer that, but Warhammer Fantasy this was, but I remember this coming out with the Lizardmen and the Bretonians. It was like pretty cool. Anyway, as I said, when I actually opened up this box, I just expected the Rebel Grot Cutter to be inside, and when I opened it, I found not only a bunch of Orks from the Gorkamorka box game, which some are painted and a few others are just been put together. One's missing an arm. So not only did I find these guys, and I think these were actually my gang that I had. There were some vehicles that were with them that I've got probably somewhere in various states of disrepair, and then my little brother's gang that they could only find 3 of them, but these haven't been painted. My little brother used to play this against. But I think it's just so funny to see the like how funny the models look, and how they're kind of cutting edge, I guess. This was like these. I used to think these models were amazing, but when you actually look back and just the very, even though it was a multi-part kit, it's a very limited poses. Quite like this guy with the big spiky knuckle duster. You can see with for some reason I wanted my brother got all the shotguns in these guys, but you can see sort of like with stuff like this, like you gotta just poses that just do not make sense whatsoever. But like I say, multi-pack kit at a time, and if you just for a size comparison, if you look at sort of one of these guys, this guy, cool guy with two twin akimbo shooters. If you look at sort of this guy compared to one of the new Age of Sigmar Orks, he's literally the size of like like a boss that you would get like the old white metal Ork boss or something. They're huge in comparison. It's just absolutely mental. But yeah, so apart from the actual plastic Orks that I got, I'll just pop these up here. Well, that I found in the box. There's 8 of those. Also, which I wasn't expecting, found some more out of production Rebel Grots. So we've got this was I think this guy was called the head honcho. So this was basically like the leader of the mob. Rebel, I think they've got mobs. So this guy was the leader, and then we had a banner waver. So this I've obviously started. I really like this model, hence why I think I'd started to paint it, albeit very badly. But yeah, so these were kind of like your, I guess like special characters in the actual mob themselves. And then I found 4 snotlings. So these with the little bow and arrows. This guy's got a little club and a knuckle duster. I think this was my favourite. And then this guy with a little catapult. So yeah, as I said, actually earlier, just to show you if I can actually get it out of the box. I can't even get it out of the box, it's kind of stuck in there, but it come with a little sail, so show the whatever. You get the idea. This basically is a sticker, you can peel it off and stick it onto your Rebel Grot cutter, the sail. So, oh, I just forgot this guy comes with got a little star, sort of back banner. Back banners were all the raging, sort of around 2nd edition 40k times. And then finally, the last little thing that I found in there were these tiny little snotlings. These are lead. These aren't even white metal. These are lead. So I think I used to, when I was at school, my sort of like form room, like classroom, was in a technology lab, and one of the technology like lab technicians like saw me reading White Dwarf, and he was like, "Oh, I've got some little models that like my son used to have, and like, if you want them." So I think these were off. I think they might have been off a pump wagon, and these are proper old. I mean, these must be like 40 years old, these guys. So this is pretty cool. There's another little find in there. So yeah, that box was full of treats. Which was a nice ORKTOBER surprise. So so that's all the models, and I just wanted to quickly just show just the weird and wackiness of General Gorkamorka, but the Rebel Grot rules, because I mean the Rebel Grots were a bit weird even for Gorkamorka. I think it's page 29. Yeah, so Gretchen Revolutionaries. So yeah, basically it has the sort of the background for the Rebel Grots and whatnot. As I said, they were basically like, you know, rising up against like the orc oppressors, that kind of stuff. If we just flick to the vehicles, it's 42. So the Rebel Grot had basically 2 vehicles, and they were both wind powered. They didn't have any engines or anything. So they had a big lugger, that was the bigger vehicle, and this actually had a weapon on and boarding planks and stuff. And then the cutter, which was pretty pointless. It was more like a troop carrier to be anything, and in basically like you'd use it for you know, teching you know, objectives or whatever. But notice when you compare like some of the OLDHAMMER rules and rule books, and albeit this is a skirmish game which has less models, so there tends to be sort of like more, you know, rules or whatever, more special rules, and you know, there was a lot more dice rolling and, you know, random, you know, events and all this kind of stuff. Tons of modifiers, which, you know, it was just, you literally need to have a like pen, paper and calculator sometimes to work some of this stuff out. But I just wanted to show you how it actually moved and worked on the table. It's just as this was just rules just for this model, so, and just for the movement. So at the start of the battle, before models are placed on the board, you must determine the current wind direction. The wind is blowing from the board edge, indicated by the roll of the scatter dice. So I don't know if they even still have them these days, but a scatter dice was basically had a dice with arrows on, and you'd roll it and you'd use it for things like, you know, if you like had a, you know, like a grenade launcher or something, and you fired it and it misfired, and you missed the target and you had to, you know, work out which way it was going, or there was various different things. But yeah, the scatter dice, you basically roll that to determine which board edge of your playing surface the wind was coming on. and then if you rolled a 1 with the scatter dice, you deduct 2 from all cutter movement for the whole battle. If you roll a 2 to 5, there's no special rules apply, the wind's just right. And if you roll a 6, then you gain an extra d6 movement for the whole of the battle. However, there's a further -1 modifier for all turning attempts. So at any point the cutter will either be upwind, downwind, or downwind or a beam of the direction of the wind, depending on its facing in relation to the wind direction. This will affect the cutter's speed and ability to turn. The diagram below shows how this works. So a little reference. Basically, if you were going down with the wind up into it, or if it's a beam and it's going sort of across. If you're going downwind, you could travel up to 2d6 plus 6. If it's a beam, so it's going across, it'd be 2d6 plus 3. And then if it's upwind, you get 2d6 minus 3. And if the movement result was 0 or less, then the cutter was unable to move. The cutter can turn up to once. Can turn once up to 45 degrees doing its movement with no risk. However, if the crew try to turn sharper than this, the cutter could flip over. So there was rules for even turning it and all sorts of stuff. But it did add a lot to the character. And then you've got another diagram on this side, basically kind of showing you like move 2 inch, turn, move another 4 inch, turn, which there would have been a test on that. Move another 2 inch. So it was like basically, just to move a vehicle. It wasn't just a case of 6 inches forward or 12 inches forward. There was just all sorts of stuff going on. But I mean, that was part of the charm of Digging Up, and it was Gorkamorka. It was a fun game to play, which I look back very fondly on. So yeah, just the last thing I was going to talk about is just the general paint jobs for them box art, and then of my miserable painting. Firstly, just looking at the box art, like I say, I think the actual miniature doesn't look too bad, compared to some other OLDHAMMER, models. And in fact, really, when you sort of compare to the paint jobs of today and the paint jobs at the time, obviously weathering and battle damage is very in vogue today, and we're going for a more like sort of, a realistic, battle worn sort of look, which I'm a big fan of. So to see, a model from this era being painted with like chips and, like a bit grubby and stuff, even though it's not necessarily the best paint job, it's not bad, and it was, that was quite ahead of its time really, because we're nowadays, like I say, we're big on weathering and adding dirt streaks, and there's a lot of inspiration and crossover from like, scale modeling and how those guys paint up, their realistic like dioramas and, tanks and all sorts of stuff. If you look at 40k, like 40k box art and White Dwarf magazines of the battles, scenes that they used to do and stuff, like everything is like clean, proper, basically perfect paint jobs. Look like they've just come off a conveyor belt rather than actually like they've been fighting in what's meant to be, the grittiest, dirtiest, most oppressive universe ever created by a person. So it never quite fit in. But in terms of, let's critique my paint jobs. Firstly, very simple. This is from a time when I think I had one paint set, which was, pretty much, primary colours, black, white, brown, probably like a flesh tone. I probably had in total, 20 paints. And that would probably have included some just, I think there was quite a few random ones that I just picked up when Games Workshop were getting rid of them. So I had like about 5 yellows, which I never ever used because yellow so hard to paint. But when you think about the, you know, what amount of paints that like people have these days, and you know, like different varieties and brands, and you know, back here I was literally just painting with the Citadel, you know, paint set, just acrylics. I think like how far I've come from them, you know, like, you know, using, you know, acrylics, enamels, oils, you know, all sorts of different you know, mediums and washes and glazes, and you know, special you know, technical paints. You know, back then it was, you know, there wasn't a huge amount of choice really, and I probably didn't even know. I didn't know about Vallejo. I didn't know about any other. I don't even know if Vallejo existed at this time. But yeah, I think Chaos Black is pretty much the main color, which would have probably been the undercoat as well. So I probably would have painted that black, and then that's it. Of course, the Orks, so they have to be all goblin. That would have been goblin green. I think I dry brushed all the areas, maybe. Don't know if I can't really tell if I just painted or dry brushed all the metal areas, or what I deemed to be metal, which is basically all of this stuff, including the straps around his body, the entirety of the guns, the entirety of the weapons, basically. Shaft is, I didn't, you know, decided that was just metal rather than maybe, you know, wood or whatever, although I did put wooden stock on there, so that was, you know, I was really going for it there. But yeah, I think, you know, it was bolt gun metal was the popular one at the time, popular silver. I think a lot of people do. I think the equivalent maybe is lead belcher nowadays, but that would have been pure skull white for what I've picked out the teeth, and then the bases, pouches, and any little bits of wood, i.e. that stock, that would have all been snakebite leather, which is the kind of a bit of a cult nostalgia sort of paint when people look back at it now. I think the only actually, like, I wouldn't call it advanced, but like, you know, technique that I used other than just slapping paint on, like I say, may have been on some of the guns dry brushing, and I think I probably took skull white there, which is basically pure white, and probably dry brushed the fur areas around like the boots and stuff. So yeah, I mean, if you want to paint on a limited palette, just go back to 1996. What have we got? Skull white, chaos black, goblin green, snakebite leather, bullgum metal. There we go, 5 paints. So yeah, I noticed how highlighting was not even a thing back then. I had no idea how to highlight anything. I did manage to get a couple of transfers on here though. Put some tattoos, a lightning bolt and a little skull. But you got to remember that at the time, I mean, there was no internet, or like if you had internet in your house, you were lucky. But then even on the internet, there wasn't really the resources like YouTube or, you know, even just some of the, you know, like Blogspot, where people do, you know, photo tutorials and stuff now. Probably wasn't till probably 10 years later after painting this when I started using like message boards, going on like Horus Heresy message board, or Butler and Chainsword and stuff, and people would start to kind of do some you know, sort of tutorials with like pictures, pretty basic. But yeah, there was no YouTube guides. If you wanted to find something out, you had some very limited painting guides, which were like released by Citadel, either like as a standalone book, which would have like a handful of pictures, and you kind of had to just work out what was going on from the description of each picture. Or it would maybe sometimes release some, you know, guides in White Dwarf, you know, White Dwarf magazine. Other than that, you literally had to go into the Games Workshop and just pester the staff. If you even believe me when I tell you that, you could ring up the mail order and ask for like hobby tips and stuff. So one of the things that I used to do whenever I was like left alone, my mum and dad went out, is I'd just literally ring up and the mail order trolls, as they were called, and just start like asking them like random questions and just like chatting to them. Well, it's very weird, but yeah. So that was my Orktober surprise. Got a little haul of OLDHAMMER Rebel GROTS and Gorkamorka Orks. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.